For this next set of tutorials, you're going to be using a warping technique called envelope distort. You're going to be typing in your name, not mine. You're going to be downloading a font, and then you're going to be repeating or trying out the different warp features built within Illustrator. So to begin with, we need to install a font that you may not have on your computer already. So to do that, we're going to come up here at the top where the Creative Cloud icon is at. So you'll click on that. That will bring up this box right here. And what you're going to do is down here at the bottom, it says Manage Fonts on the left-hand side. Go ahead and click on Manage Fonts. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you browse more fonts here. And this is going to open up your web browser. And it may take just a moment because it's going to ask you to sign in. So if it doesn't automatically take you there, go ahead and sign in. Give it a second. Mine just automatically took me there. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to search for a font called Cubano. And right down here, there's this view family. You can go ahead and click on it. And let's go ahead and activate just this Cubano regular. So you click on this little slider and it's telling you that it's activated. Now it will take a moment for it to actually activate in the program. But if we come back over here to Adobe Fonts, I want to show you some cool things that are set up in here. So what you can do, come on, that just took me to the other one. I'm going to do Browse Fonts. There are a whole bunch of different fonts that are available, and Adobe's giving you access to these for free. So they've got different ways to sort things here. So if you're looking for something that's got more of a horror kind of feel, Western, comic, friendly, geometric, calligraphy, brush, what this will do is when you click on any of these, like let's go ahead and let's try brush pen. You can actually type in whatever you want here, and it will show you a demo of what that particular font will look like. Oftentimes, what I will do is if I'm looking for something, I may type something in all caps and in lowercase or in title case just to see what it looks like. Now, most scripted fonts do not look very good in all caps because the first letter is really ornate, really decorative, and so it doesn't always look good. So that's something you can look at. And so you can go through and look, there's 5 pages worth of just this brush style. Now, some of the fonts that you download will only be in capital letters. So you may not be able to find one that's got lowercase. That's why it's important to type in what you're looking for in a variety of different ways. Now over here, if you didn't want to look for these particular ones, you can filter it further by making it thicker. And we'll learn what these are with script and slab serif and sans serif and different varieties. And then how thick are the letters, how wide are the letters, how high is the X height. That's the height of the lowercase x. So you can see this one's really tall for an H. It's kind of midway and that's kind of low. So there's a lot of really cool things in fonts that we'll learn about later. But once you have Cubano activated, you will find, let's go ahead and minimize this, and we'll come back over here. You're going to be able to do this particular exercise. Now, over on this side, you're going to take one of these effects, and I'm going to use the fish effect, and we're going to make this very simple, kind of basic logo. So to begin, let's go ahead and come down here, and we're going to put in your name 15 times. So I'm going to show you some tricks using the alignment as well as using some keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to come over with the text tool and I'm just going to click once. I'm not going to click and drag. Now your font, whatever shows up here, may look different than mine because the last one I used was Helvetica Neue. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my name with whatever font comes up. And I'm going to change the size probably to 21. Actually highlight this. 21. Let me actually spell my name correctly. There we go. And I'm going to highlight the text just by clicking several times, and I'm going to change the font over here to Cubano. Now you'll notice on mine, what it does, it will alphabetize them, This is showing you the most commonly used ones that you've done recently. And then once you get past that, you'll start to find the words. Or inside of this box, you can just start typing in CUB and it will take you to any font that has those letters. So I'll choose Cubano. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, maybe we should make this size 24. I'm okay with you changing the size. If your name is very short, you may make it bigger. If your name is longer, you may make it smaller. So the exact size isn't going to make or break the overall assignment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this down so it's kind of centered right here by arc. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my Option key and I'm going to start to drag. And as I'm dragging, I'm going to go ahead and press the Shift key as well. What that will do is that will keep things straight. So I'm going to hold down the Option key. I'm going to start to drag. I press Shift, and it keeps it straight. Now, once I have those three, if I highlight all three of those, I can do the same thing I just did, but instead of going left to right, I'm going to go down. So I'm going to press the Option key. I'm going to start to drag, keeping the Shift key held down as well. Then I'm going to highlight all of these. You won't have to do this middle part. I'll have that locked. And so I'm selecting 2 rows of my name. I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key. I'm going to press the Shift key as I'm doing that. And then I'm going to highlight just 1 row, hold down the Alt, start to drag, and press the Option. So it was just a very fast way to be able to pull those down. Now what I can do just to line these up is I'm going to highlight. Actually, I'm just going to leave it as it is. So this part here. So this part's relatively quick. So I'm going to show you on here. Once you highlight your name, we're going to go to Object, Envelope Distort, and we're going to do Make with Warp. And why? Let me check and see. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Trying to go a little too quick. I'm going to select without the text inside. I'm going to select the actual frame. And I'm going to go to Envelope Distort. Now see how they're available. We're going to do this Make with Warp. And we're going to choose the first one. We're going to do Arc. Now, the exact settings on here I'm not too worried about. But what I'm looking for is I want you to kind of see what these things do. And each one of these options will do something slightly different. So what you'll do is you'll choose the first one, Arc. You can kind of pull these over to see the extremes, just to see what happens. You can change vertical just to see what happens. What I'd like to make sure is that your text for the most part is readable, so it's not just a random distortion. So that's going to be up to you to decide what you want, but I'm going to keep this one on horizontal. Now notice as I drag this one further over, it goes from a thin amount out to being thicker, or the opposite way, where it's thicker going off into the distance. So it's going to vary on which one of these is going to be the most useful to you. But you can kind of play around with these sliders and see what it does. So I'm just going to go ahead and, like I said, I don't expect yours to look exactly like mine. I'm not worried about that. I just want to push this one up a little bit. I'm going to click OK. Then I'm going to repeat that same process for the next one. I'm going to go over an Envelope Distort, Make with Warp. I'm going to choose this time the very next one. See, it says Arc Lower. What this does is it keeps the line straight across the top and then does this bowing out towards the bottom. And you can do the same kind of thing here. This one doesn't make a lot of sense having it twisted upwards. So it's better to go this way. And then again, the horizontal distortion happens depending on which way you want it to go. I'll show you a couple more, and then I'm going to let you do these on your own. So you'll want to pause the video, and once you've finished all 15 of these, you're going to work on the logo. So what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to show you when you go to Envelope Distort, see how this has a keyboard shortcut. This is the Command key. So this is going to be Command, Option, Shift, and W. So this little up arrow is the Shift key. That is your Option, and that is your Command key. So what I can do is I can choose this one either by the menu to see what it does, or if I press Command, Option, Shift, and W, it will bring it up automatically, and I can choose the next one down to do Arch, and I can experiment just to see what it's doing. And you're going to repeat that same process for each one of these. This one will be Bulge, and so on. So you'll have something that looks similar to mine, but isn't going to be exactly the same because obviously your name is different. So at this point, go through and fix all of these and then pause the video and come back when you're finished with those. In this same document, you're going to move over to the right. And in this section, you're going to work on creating this simple logo. So pause the video now. All right, welcome back. On here, what we're going to do is we're going to start with, let me zoom over here. I'm going to leave this one kind of up here so you can kind of see where we're headed. So we're going to start by first creating a dark blue rectangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this rectangle tool and I'm going to double click. By double clicking, it gives me the option of putting in an exact number here. And what I want to do is I want to do 8 inches by 4.5 inches. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then what I'm going to do is I want to lock this. So if you want to lock an object while it's selected, you can go to Object and you can choose Lock Selection, or you can just press Command 2. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to press Command 2 and it locks that particular one. Actually, I'm going to undo. I just realized I forgot to change it first. I'm going to undo the lock. I want to use my eyedropper. So I press the letter I, switched automatically to the eyedropper here, and I'm going to suck up that dark color. Now I'm going to press Command 2. So then what that will do, Command 2 will lock it so that it won't move. And I can show you later how to move the thing around, but for now, let's go ahead and just leave that one locked. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the text tool and using Cubano at about approximately 200 point. Again, this will vary and we can change this later. I'm just going to click once. I'm going to type the word fish in all caps. There we go. That looks good. I'm going to highlight the text and I'm going to eyedropper up this light blue color that's over here. All right, cool. I'm going to move that over to the side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Warp. And this time I'm going to choose Fish. And I'm going to make it about 55, somewhere around there. You can kind of play around with it a little bit if you want to decide to make a fish that's got a little thinner tail or a little wider, but something where you get this kind of bulb starting to happen. So yeah, that looks fine. I'm going to click OK. All right, so if you're happy with the way that this looks, what you're going to do is you're going to expand this so it turns into a shape. So it's an outline. So I'm going to choose Envelope Distort, and I'm going to choose Expand. So now that has become individual items that I can manipulate if I want. So I'm going to double click away from that so I can get out of isolation mode. And now I want to draw the fish's head. So with this, what I'm looking at is I'm imagining where the head of the fish would go, somewhere around this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of come a little further out from this side as if I'm dragging or drawing. And now I'm going to click once. So I'm going to click. I'm going to drag just a little bit. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to come and make a little bit of a curve and a little bit of a curve. Now that's not exactly where I want it to be, and it'll depend on where you clicked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this down because I want to kind of have the nose kind of towards the middle. I might even curve that in just a little bit. Maybe that'll work because I've got this curved edge happening on the bottom of the letters. So a sharp edge on the fish face may not be exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to kind of manipulate this around just a little bit to kind of smooth things out. I can zoom out just a little bit to see if that's looking pretty decent. I'm not real happy with. Let me tighten that in just a little bit. Maybe rotate just a little. All right, so what I'm looking at is kind of the distance that's happening here. I want that to be about the same as well. So that's why I'm kind of playing around with the different sizes, stretching them out just a little bit. Yours will vary depending on where you clicked, but just as long as you get it close, that's really all I'm looking for. All right, excellent. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make the eyeball. So I'm going to grab the ellipse tool and zoom back in here, and I'm going to hold down the shift key as I drag. That will keep it proportional. I'll switch back to my black arrow and grab it from this center point. In fact, I'm going to eyedropper up the color from behind and switch back to my selection tool. I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit and start to see, is that looking right? Maybe I'll kick it in just a little bit. What I'm trying to do is I want a little bit of that to be cut off. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to select the eyeball, and I'm going to select the head shape that I made. So I have both of those selected. So now I'm going to choose the Pathfinder tool, and I'm going to choose minus from front. So it'll cut a hole right through that fish head. Awesome. All right. So now I'm going to select the head. I'm going to hold the shift key, and I'm going to click on the fish, and I'm going to group it by pressing Command G or by clicking on the group button right over there. All right, let's go ahead and choose a different font. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to type the word market, all caps, and I'm going to switch the font to something that's thinner. So one of the things you can do with these fonts is you can choose this filter, and you can say, show me letters that are sans serif. Those are ones without the little feet. We'll talk about that later on. And show me ones that are kind of regular weight. All right, cool. So now here you can go through and you can find any of these thinner ones that are set up. The one that I'm going to use, and I don't know if you have this one or not, I'm going to choose clear all so I can see all of my fonts again, is I'm going to use one called Helvetica Neue. There we go. And Helvetica Neue. I'm going to choose Helvetica Neue Light. All right. And I'm going to zoom out. Now to resize this, I can hold down the shift key and grab a corner, and this will keep it proportional. If I don't do the shift key, see it distorts the word. So move that down. Drag this down here. Now here's a trick. I'm going to highlight the text inside. I'm going to press my Option key, and I'm going to use my right arrow. What this does is it puts what's known as tracking. It's even amount of space between all of the letters. If I go too far, if I decide that's too much, I can keep the Option key held down, and I can press my right or my left arrow and kind of play around with that. What I'm looking at is trying to figure out a way to kind of line this up with this area and kind of feel like it's somewhat centered underneath the S and the H. And then I'm going to highlight the text again and take my eyedropper and pull that color in so that now I've got them both at the same color. And yeah, that looks fine. Click away. Going to zoom out. So now I've got fish market. And so now the only thing left to do is to build these bubbles. So let me show you how I went about building these bubbles. So I started first with taking a circle, holding down the shift key, and I'm going to eyedropper up the mid-tone blue, this one, or the shadow of the blue right here. And then I'm going to copy. So I select the circle, I press Command C. I'm going to press Command F. Command F paste an exact copy on top of it, but I want to leave it there. I'm going to eyedropper, so I press the letter I, and I'm going to grab that little mid-tone color, and I'm going to click away. I'm going to choose just that top arrow, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. What I'm going to do now is, now that that lighter blue is selected, I can use my arrow keys, and I'm going to nudge it up using my arrow key twice and off to the right twice. Maybe up one more. Yeah, so 3 times up, 1 time over. And what that does is that gives me this little bit of a shadow. But I want to get rid of that little outside piece. You can see where it overlaps. If I press Command Y, you can see what I'm talking about. I want this little sliver to be my shadow, and I don't want this part at all. So what I'm going to do, press Command Y again, I'm going to highlight both of those, and this time I'm going to switch to the shape builder, and I'm going to press the Option key and delete that little guy out. So now I've got those two pieces. I've got the shadow and I've got the midtone color. And now what I need to do is I need to make this little highlight. So what I'm going to do to make that highlight is a similar technique, but I'm going to draw a new circle. And then with that new circle, I'm going to eyedropper up the lighter color. I'm just holding down the space bar and clicking with my mouse to use this little hand tool. If there's any other keyboard shortcuts or things that I'm doing that you're like, I don't know what he's doing, call me over. I'll be happy to help you with it. So I'm going to take this one. I'm going to Command C to copy, Command F to paste right on top. And I'm going to eyedropper. So I'm pressing the letter I, clicking on the blue. So now I have the blue on top. And now I'm going to do the opposite of what I did before. I'm going to press, this time I'm going to press down two times, and maybe three. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I can't really see this color. So what I'm trying to do is I want to, if this was exactly on top, this again, your highlight might look a little different than mine, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to move that down twice, and I'm actually going to expand this out just a little bit. What I'm looking for is I want to have kind of like a little half moon kind of shape that's there, but I don't want it to be totally circular. So I want to kind of push that one out just a little bit, so I can start to see what that's looking like. And maybe I move that over. So I'm starting to look at that negative space right up there. Yeah. Yeah, it's looking okay. And I'm going to use my shape builder. This time I'm going to press the Alt or Option key and drag through those two pieces that I don't want. So what I'm left with is this little half moon kind of shape. Now I can put this one on here, and I can rotate this around, and I can squish it. I'm just kind of playing around with trying to draw something that gives off a little bit of the illusion of the roundness kind of following the same roundness. Because when you zoom out, just the midtone, the highlight, and the shadow gives off the illusion that it's kind of, semi-cartoon realistic. All right, once you have that, go ahead and group. So you can press the group button or press Command G. I'm going to hold down the Option key to duplicate it, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key to shrink it down. So I'm going to add like a little bubble there. Then I'm going to hold down the Option key and duplicate it again, and hold down the Shift to shrink it down. And then I'm going to hold down the Option key to duplicate, and I'm going to hold down the Option key to duplicate again. So I just wanted to make like a little pile of, or a little bit of bubbles. I'm doing uneven numbers because it's called rule of odds. It usually looks better if you have something that isn't symmetrical, meaning twos, fours, six, eights, even numbers. It's better with odds. All right. And then I can move that over. I can shrink it. I can even rotate it if I want, just to kind of experiment with where I think a good placement would be. And that is how you make that particular logo. But the last thing that I want to do is I want to shrink the artboard, because I've got all this extra white space around here. Notice how I just have this one is just going right to the edge. What you can do is choose your artboard tool and just drag these bounding boxes. Again, these bounding boxes are the border of what you're selecting. So you're always going to have to the furthest right, furthest left, the center vertically and the center horizontally, and then the left, right there. Zoom in, pressing Control plus or Command plus. Sorry, I'm going to say Control all the time. All right, and looks like my artboard is set. Just kick that little guy in. And then what you can do is you can just move this entire thing by holding your mouse button down with that tool and just bringing it right back up towards the instructions. Oops. Actually, you know what? Go ahead and leave it there. I don't want to go through and do the unlocking and all that kind of stuff, so we'll just leave it like that. So that is envelope distort and a practical application of using the envelope distort. So it's not just making funky shaped letters, but it's a way for you to be able to do some logo type design. And we'll be getting more into that in a future project. Go ahead and save your file as an Illustrator file, and you are done with this lesson.